everyone, and welcome to the D-Tools What's the Buzz podcast. I'm Jason Knott, Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist at D-Tools, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Tim Bagonis, Chief Marketing Officer at D-Tools. Hey, Tim.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me today.
Sure.
One of the benefits that we have from D-Tools software is to be able to see in aggregate a lot of trends that are occurring out there for integrators in terms of how they're actually operating their businesses, both not just from a proposal standpoint and a contract standpoint, but full operations. And one of the things that was really surprising recently, a revelation related to the design fees or the lack of design fees.
Well, that's really a good point. And one of the things that we've kind of learned, over the last few years with, now over 3,000 dealers using D-Tools Cloud is questions around progress payments and design fees. And so, we're pleased today because we actually have our first two-time guest on the podcast out of our many episodes. We got a good friend, Josh Christian, who's CEO of the Home Technology Association, the HTA, and we're pleased to welcome back Josh. Thanks for being here, bud.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you guys. It's really fun talking this industry stuff with you, and it's great. It's a great topic too. So thanks for having me on this topic.
For those of you who may not be familiar with HTA, why don't you give us a little briefing about HTA, how it came to be? It's always good to get the little bit of a backstory for those who may not know.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So HTA is a consumer-facing association that is designed to help consumers and trade partners, and my trade partners meaning architects, designers, and builders, help them find qualified integrators. It's a badge of excellence, much like Michelin stars are to restaurants, or a 5-star safety rating is to a safe car. So it's a great third-party way for top integrators to differentiate themselves from the fray out there. Because as we all know, this industry is full of some integrators out there that are, low ballers, or, we use the term truck slammers, those folks that are kind of bringing our industry down. And there's so many great integrators that are out there. Think of all the integrators, at D-Tools. There's some awesome folks out there, and they need a way to easily differentiate themselves from the fray. And that's what this was designed to do, to help those best integrators close the projects, not lose projects to inferior integrators. And that was our initial launch. That's what we do. And as an added thing that we've done as well, which kind of really folds into today's topic, is we're helping bring integrators and then trade partners, and by trade partners meaning architects, designers, and builders, bring them closer together so they have a cohesive, mutually beneficial working relationship where they get along with each other, and the ultimate winner is the client, because they get such a better system by the great working of those two halves together.
Tim mentioned had done a little bit of research on progress payments. And again, it was kind of interesting for us to see that not a lot of integrators were doing design fees. And I know that is an element that HTA encourages its members. Let's kind of delve into the topic a little bit. When we talk about a design for a system, and something that an integrator might possibly charge for, what are we talking about? What's entailed in that?
Yeah, and it can vary, right? So some integrators are charging for site visits or just initial consultations because they're trying to weed out the tire kickers, just someone getting a whole bunch of quotes and trying to find the cheapest guy. Totally get that. What I'm referring to here more when we say design and engineering fees at HTA, we're talking about something a little deeper. And that is, putting together a list of documentation that's going to serve the project well. And again, this is something where when I list some of these drawings, which could easily be done with D-Tools, we're referring to something that ideally the integrator is charging for. So instead of becoming a loss leader, it becomes like profit center for the job, or at least getting paid for it, because it takes time, right? So some of those key drawings are device placement drawings, right? So like, where's the stuff go? And this is a great document to, get the floor plans from the architect or the builder, whoever's got them. And then you make a layer of that, right? So you are plotting out where things go, so you can collaborate back with that trade partner to say, hey, we're going to put some speakers here, we're going to put a keypad or a touchscreen or whatever it might be, we're going to recess the TV here. so people could visually see where the technology is going and where the racks go and such in a like reflected ceiling plan type of layout. So one of them is a device placement drawing. Another one, equipment rack drawings. That's kind of common, right? But that's part of that drawing set. Electrical requirements. Now, this is a big one too, because all electronics take power. And if you're going to have racks of equipment somewhere or dispersed throughout the house, we all know in this industry, right? You have to have so much power in certain locations and maybe so many amps, and maybe it's grounded differently or isolated if it's like higher end systems like home theaters and such, where projectors and TVs and things go. So the integrator knows all this stuff, right? Because they're help placing this equipment so they could call out where the electrical needs to be and what circuits they want. And how awesome would that be to get that done early? So the electrician knows this from the get-go. There's no change orders later on. So that's another one of these plans. Another one, cooling requirements. All this stuff puts out heat, and we've all been in projects where you open a closet or a mechanical room and it's toasty in there because the electronics are cooking. And if people had known earlier on, meaning the HVAC person, the MEP, had known what the heat output of the components are, then they could have accommodated for that with ventilation systems and such, right? So that's another piece of key intel. Pre-wired plan, that's another document on its own, right? Kind of self-explanatory there. Another piece of information and the documentation is framing requirements. So, for example, is there going to be a motorized screen? Well, how should it, where's it going to come out of so the joist can handle that? Or are we lining up the speakers and the light cans to certain grid lines? Well, the framer needs to know that so they don't put framing members in the way of where the speakers go, and blocking for heavy TVs and stuff like that, right? So that's important to know up front. And also related to that is shade pocket requirements, right? It's all part of that.
And so would you say that, the detailed level of documentation, and by the way, D-Tools can help with almost all the drawings and documentation that you mentioned, right? Rack elevations, the plan views, the simple line diagrams, all the way down to the detailed schematic drawings. We can really help craft that package of documentation in our system. And on SI, we're tracking we're able to track the BTUs, the amps, the volts, and generate those rack requirements and help do some of those computations that will really help inform the other trades, the consumer and ultimate end users on those types of requirements. And it really does really raise that level of communication before any of the work gets started. And I think identifying those keys is really critical. And then that is not just the time involved, but the expertise. And I think that's where kind of having that concept of charging for that design, or at least accounting for it within the project, is really valuable.
Absolutely. And like you said, the drawings are helpful, but it shows the expertise. It takes years for integrators to get this, right? To really embody this. And and here's what I recommend: if you're an integrator listening to this and you're on the fence about charging for design, let this be the impetus to do it, right? Get those drawings together, even if it's a sample set. If you haven't done this before, do it. Make your own sample set and use it as an example. It could be a fake home, doesn't exist yet. But when you're able to go and show these type of drawings to builders and architects and designers, they'll understand the labor involved, and they'll also understand what's in it for them and how that could streamline the process later on and massively minimize the change orders and project delays, which inevitably happen when all this stuff's kicked off to the last minute, right? I've been on many projects. I was an integrator for 16 years in my past, and I could tell you super high-end mega builds. This was all thought of at the last minute. They're calling you a week before sheetrock goes up, and we need to put some wires in here. Oh my God, we needed to be part of this 2 years ago.
Right.
And you're sitting there with the mechanical rooms that are cooking, and then change orders. They're mad at you. You're like, don't be mad at us that electronics actually take power and need to be cooled, you should be mad at yourselves for not thinking about this early enough on, because it's just obvious that these are things that are going to be needed by the systems. So it's definitely a chargeable thing. And it's so much easier to show those drawings as samples that go, oh, I get it, instead of just explain it like we're doing here. I mean, we're explaining it, you get it because we're in the industry, but wow, when a trade partner could see this is what you do, they get it, and they'll understand that those drawings cost, especially architects and designers. They're used to bringing consultants in, right? Like MEPs and structural engineers. They produce drawings and they get charged for those drawings. So another one of those really key drawings too that those trade partners will easily grasp the importance of is Wi-Fi heat maps, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And that varies house to house in the construction methods. So we could, the integrator could tell the builder or the architect designer, like, well, there's some rules of thumb, but it's not exactly the same in every house because of the way the house is built and what even types of windows. If it's low E glass, Wi-Fi won't go through that. We'll have to put some Wi-Fi access points out in the yard. So let's get the right conduits. You're like, whoa, man, this is really complex. Yes, it is. But that's what I'm here to help you out with.
I think you guys have both made a great case as to why charging for design, what's entailed with the design. But let's talk about the fees themselves. What is your recommendation, or what are you seeing out there from the HTA members who are doing this, Josh? Is it an hourly? Is it a flat fee? Is it a percentage of the project? How should an integrator base those design fees on?
That is a good question, Jason, and I don't have that data now. I have some, asking some integrators around what they do, and it's kind of all over the map. So some of them charge by a percent, like $1 per square foot, not $1 per square foot. It could be $1, but it depends on the system. So I do know that where I worked back years ago at DSI in Los Angeles, I don't know what they're doing now with their charges, but they kind of started at a baseline of $1 square foot. That did not include lighting controls or lighting design, nor did that include a home theater design, because those are specialty situations, which would entail extra fees. So it was kind of like a menu, but it was based on $1 per square foot. I did a little research based on, preparing for this and to see what other metrics are being charged out there. Some are charging a percentage of the project as a baseline. And I know there was an article that Hidden Wires did in the UK that they say 5% is what a lot of integrators in the UK are charging. That doesn't work on very small small projects, and doesn't work on very large projects, but it kind of gives you a baseline. A suggestion I have, though, because sometimes it's the chicken and the egg. Like, well, I don't know how big of a system I need yet. Where do I go, or how do I know what size system I need? Then shameless plug here, but this is what the HTA budget calculator is for. You could spend less than 10 minutes with the prospective client. They're building their budget with you by answering those 18 questions, and they're high level, easy, simple questions. And it gives you a range of a budget. And the range could be like easily 3x. It could be, $100,000 to $300,000, the range. And but at least you're knowing where the client needs to be. And then based on the organic conversation that flows from that, then you kind of know where the client needs to be budget-wise, right? They might say, well, hey, I need to be down at this $100,000. As a matter of fact, is there a way I could pinch it a little bit below $100,000? And yeah, it even says on the calculator itself, use a couple DIY level products. Yeah, we could bring the budget below. So let's say, okay, so we're going to base it on a $95,000 projected budget. I'm going to charge, X amount. So, but make it whatever it is. This is whatever it is. You don't want it to be a loss leader, right? It's something you want to, you're smart. Take years to get where you're at to put these systems together. Don't underestimate the value you bring to a project. So charge for it, even if it's just to cover your fees, but hopefully to make it a profit center as well. It is something to do. And your question prompts something though too. I'm thinking about doing a survey, an industry-wide survey, to ask the world, well, hey integrators, what are you doing? Share some, we'll make it anonymous. That's what I'm thinking of doing, is doing like an anonymous survey to get this data. which I think will be helpful to the whole industry, then share it back out with everybody, so they could learn from their peers.
It's one of the questions that I would have, and I'll throw this out to you as whether you think this is advisable or not. But what about the idea of an integrator who does charge for those design fees, puts the expertise into it, but then should they subtract that from the actual contract if they get the job or not? Is that advisable, or what do you think?
In the end game, I'd say no. You're still cheapening somewhat what you do if you give the money back. So I know that's a starter way. So a starter way to get into it. So if you're listening to this and you're intrigued, but you're really afraid in your market area, like, well, no one else does it for free, and if I do that, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot. Well, maybe you're just going to work a lot more efficiently, right? And the clients that are serious are going to pay that fee, the ones that don't. So maybe offer to give it back if they hire you, or a percent. But and talking to other consultants and sales trainers in this industry that I respect, I see that some of the really successful companies might start that way because they're a little nervous. And then when they get their sea legs and realize, oh my God, we should have done this 10 years ago, then they don't. I asked an integrator I'm friends with here in LA about this, and he goes, we used to, we don't now. It's one of our most valuable things we do is the knowledge between our ears. And we're not going to give that away for free. I'm like, more power to you. That's the minority right now, but I wish the majority of our integrators would do that, because it really will professionalize our industry and help the integrator get seen as a true consultant, and not, or a consultant in addition to an integrator, as opposed just to another contractor. And that kind of segues into that CEDIA class I'm doing, right? And that's one of the ways you do that. You're a different type of sub than the rest of the subs on the project. Why? Because there's so much more design work needed to be an integrator on the front end than it is to be a plumber or electrician, right? Way more design work. So because of that, it's a heavy thing. The design and consultation, make that a phase of what you do, and put that on your website, put it in your sales pitches, that consultation and design is phase one. Even if the client decides not to hire me, they got value from this. They got this plan set that they could get bids on if they want, and then shop it around. That's another way to sell it, by the way. It's like, hey, I'm going to charge you this, but the resulting documentation, such as the sample set, means you could go around and get some competitive bids if you want. Now, that will sell to the client, but here's the thing that you'll find out. This is the interesting stat. If you ask the integrators that charge for design, their close ratio is over 90%. Because what happens is, once the integrator is doing the discovery process, and if you're a good integrator and you're asking, what's the cat's name? What's the dog's name? What's the kid's names? How do you live? Do you entertain? What kind of music do you like? You're like, oh my God, this is different than I thought. They really want to know how we enjoy our home. They really care about how I'm going to live in this house every day. And you build this relationship with them. And if I build a relationship with you, Tim, like through this process, I'm like, Tim knows me. Like, right. He knows like everything about me, and he cares. Why am I going to go to some stranger to, I feel like this guy, he's open about his pricing. He met what that said in that budget calculator, so I know he's not ripping me off. Why would I go shop it? That's what happens, right? So that's another reason to charge for design. Work more efficiently and bring your close ratio up. Is it for everybody? No. The tire kickers, you weed them out.
Well, I think, the main thing is whether people are charging or not, to get in the habit of doing that process, to document, to understand what the design is, to understand what the homeowner is looking for, and to provide that documentation. And that breeds more confidence, and that could lead to the design fees. If they're not doing that now, then really the encouragement is to start doing it, right?
Yes. And to build on what you just said, that also, by doing those drawings, it backs up the integrators ask, why do you need to bring me in early? Because this is what I kick out. This is my deliverable. And this is going to help all your other proposals from your electrician, your HVAC contractor, and your framer to be accurate from the get-go, as opposed to change order due to me getting involved later. And by the way, I've taught this type of information at 3 international builder shows in a row. And also I was one of the keynote speakers at the National Association of Remodeling Industry, NARI, a couple of years ago, and shared this information. And every single time I would do this little shocker to the builders. I would say, this is what an integrator does. This is what, the scope of work they do. And you need to bring them into your project for a technology design before you get framing, electrical, and HVAC bids. And then I shut up, and then I watched the look on their face, some furrowed brows like, huh, what? I'm like, that's not the way you're used to doing things, right? But here's why it's in your best interest. 100% of the time, they go, that makes total sense. So they get it. It's logical. Your drawings, Tim, will back you up, right? That's why I need to get involved early. This is what I'm going to provide the project. They'll get it.
This is great information. We could talk all day about this. And I know, we didn't even touch on the HTA design partner designation that you guys have that kind of makes design and documentation an important element of that. But we got to wrap it up. Tim, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts you want to mention to Josh, but this is a great topic, and I can't wait for your session at CEDIA.
Yeah, no, great. Josh, how can people learn more?
Thanks. Yes, they could go to the website, htacertified.org, and you could email me at jc@htacertified.org, JC being my initials. And Jason, yeah, thanks. I was reading those the type of drawings right off of the HT Design Partner page, and just to kind of give it a little plug, but this is a really interesting story on this. The HTA Design Partner is just a free opt-in designation that HTA certified integrators can opt into. And what this program is we worked with builders and architects, designers, and we interviewed them and say, what do you want out of the ideal integrator? If you could build your own dream integrator, what would that be? How would they act, and what things would they not do, and what drawings would they provide? That's the output. So all those drawings I rattled off are what architects, designers, and builders see value in. So I'll share a link with you guys that you can put the show notes of what the HT Design Partner Program is. And for every integrator out there, if you even if you don't care about HTA certification, just learn from this page, because you're going to get into the minds of architects, designers, and builders, because they help build that program.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, Josh, thank you so much for the time. Thanks, Tim, as always. Great conversation. Reminder for everybody to hit the like and subscribe button if you're watching this What's the Buzz podcast on our YouTube channel. And also do the same thing and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or whatever your podcast platform is, so you don't miss a single episode. So thanks for listening, and thanks, everybody. Have a great day.